So hello and welcome to another video. So in the last video you would have seen me fitting this Renogy Mini Core 300 amp hour battery. Just a couple of things to add before we get on to the next video. One is this edge here where this conduit is, we're going to fit a bit plastic edge trim. The conduit's too close to that for my liking, and when the van's moving, you know, you could have an issue with that positive cable ribbon on that, so that's going to be changed. Another thing I never added at the time, but which I've used tape. There's an exposed bit of the post on these MRBF fuses, and I thought I'd just put a bit of tape over it, you know, to cover that up. So I just wanted to add that. So today's video is, what we're going to do is we're going to fit a DC to DC charger. And what we'll do is we'll head into the workshop, we'll have a look at it, we'll unbox it, we'll show you the features, and then we'll go on the whiteboard and we'll explain the cabling, the fuse sizes, for both the 40 amp charger that I'm going to fit and the Renogy 20 amp DC to DC charger as well. So we'll have a look at that. Where we're going to fit it is, it's going to live inside here. You can see a couple of holes already. I've pre-drilled them. You can see the holes, the mounting holes. So what we're going to do is we're going to head in and we'll have a look at it, and then we'll bring it out and we'll fit the cable in and the rest of it. Okay, so we're back in the workshop where it's relatively warm. So a couple of things to say before we start. One is, this series isn't sponsored by Renogy. I've paid for all of these products with my own money. The reason I choose Renogy products is I've used them in the past. I like the warranty, the customer service, the price is okay. So I want to put that to bed before we start. And the second thing is, if you copy anything in this video, you do so at your own risk. If you electrocute yourself, set your van on fire, anything like that, that's your problem. Okay. So we'll have a look in the box and see what we've got. So the first thing is a quick guide. I suggest you go to Renogy's website and download the full manual for this, because it has a lot more information than the quick guide, but this will get you started. We've got a couple of nice Renogy stickers, e-warranty card. Inside you'll find a QR code, scan it, register your product, and then you've got your warranty. This is an ignition signal wire, we'll go into that in a second. We've got 4 mounting screws for the unit itself, and we have a temperature sensor. This is a battery temperature sensor, and we'll have a look at that in a second. The unit itself, so the unit itself is, on one side we've got marked alt, plus and minus. So for the starter battery side, we've got a positive going to come in here and a negative going to come in on there. On the other side coming out, we've got a marked back, plus and minus. We're going to have the positive coming out there and the negative coming out there. So if we have a look at this end here, you'll see it says ignition. This is where the ignition signal wire is plugged in. Now, this ignition signal wire must be used if you've got a smart alternator. How you wire that in will be dependent on your vehicle type. So what I suggest is, if you're not confident with wiring this in and you have a smart alternator, I suggest you get like an auto electrician or somebody like that to fit that in for you. If you're using a traditional alternator, when it's constant voltage and amps, you don't need to use the signal wire. So that's what that's for. If we have a look at the other side, what we've got here is we've got a port for the BT2 Bluetooth unit. Now, you would use that if you wanted to change any of the parameters within the unit itself, set up voltage and battery type and so forth. And that's what that port is used for there. Now the next step, we've got the battery temperature sensor, that's this one here. Now this doesn't need to be used on lithium batteries because they've got low temperature disconnect, and the battery management system in lithium will take care of the charging parameters. But if you've got any other battery type than lithium, you plug this in and the charger will look at the temperature around the battery and charge accordingly. So we'll have a look at the front yet. So first we've got a series of lights here. First one's battery. Now this is, I'll try and get the colours for this if I can find it. So this is the battery status indicator, and if it is flashing green, it means that it's charging the battery up. If it is solid green, it means it's in standby mode or the battery is fully charged. The one next to it is the fault indicator. Now you could have a number of faults and this will register what fault it is. It might be solid, it might be flashing at a certain rate, it might be a certain colour. You have to have a look in the manual, and whatever that's indicating, you look up in the manual and it will show you what fault you got. Now battery type, so how you're going to use this is you've got a button here and a single press will cycle through, and that indicator will change colour. Depending on what colour it is will depend on what battery you're going to hook up to this. So if it's solid green, it is solid or AGM. If it's solid yellow, it's gel. If it's solid red, it's flooded. If it's solid white, it's user mode, where the Bluetooth will come into play because you'll be able to change the parameters within it. And for lithium, it's got two settings. A light blue colour is lithium activation disabled, and a dark blue colour is lithium activation enabled. So what that is if you drain your battery down to 10 volts, your lithium battery, it's going to go into a sleep mode, and in order to wake that up, you would have to put that in the dark blue mode, you know, activation mode basically, so that it'll wake that battery up, because the BMS in the lithium battery, you know, it's shut down and it needs to be woken up. So that Renogy suggests themselves that you keep that in dark blue, you know, if you're using a lithium battery, and that way if your battery goes into sleep mode, this charger is able to wake it up. Right, so we'll have a look at the terminals, because I found it surprising, to be honest. So the terminals themselves, on the old Renogy battery, I'm sure these terminals were M6, but Renogy's changed it on this one, and they're using M4 screws with square washers underneath them. Personally, I thought that was a bit light, and I would have preferred the M6, but you know, the manufacturer knows what's what. So the terminals that Renogy suggests, these are M4 screws, but the terminal lugs that Renogy suggests are M5. These are M5s. Now, I initially tried it and put an M6 on it, but there was just far too much play in it. It was really sloppy. It was like a pea rattling in a barrel, and you just wouldn't want to use that. So we got these M5s. Now, it's not a common size. If you buy a multi-pack of these lugs, you'll be hard pressed to find M5 holes in them. You know, most of them are 4, 6, 8 and so forth. So I managed to track down these. Now these are 16.5s. So 16mm cable, 5mm hole. Renogy suggests a 5mm hole. So we'll put them in and we'll just have a look to see how much play is in this. So I'm just going to bring this down just until it's lightly set, and then we'll have a look. So you can see for yourself, there is a slight amount of play in that, but it's not excessive. It's certainly not like the M6s, they were terrible. And when you're tightening these down, don't go too mad on them. Remember, these are just M4 screws, so just nip them up and they seem pretty solid to me. So that's what Renogy is suggesting, so that's what we'll go with. Now what we're going to do is we're going to have a look. I've got a whiteboard set up here, and it will show the cabling sizes and the fuses to use. We're going to have a look at that because we've got limited space in the van, and showing you how it's going to be set up in the van is going to be harder. If we have a look at the whiteboard, we'll have a look at the cables and how everything's set up. Okay, so let's have a look at how we're going to install the DC to DC charger. So Renogy make two chargers, they're almost identical, it's just how many amps they output. We're going to be installing the 40 amp charger, 12-12-40, and they also make a 12-12-20. We're going to go through the cable sizes for the 40, and then I'll explain the cable sizes for the 20. So from the starter battery, we're going to run a cable from the positive on the starter battery. It's going to run up, it's going to go to alt plus on the DC to DC charger. From the negative of the starter battery, we're going to run a cable up, it's going to go to alt negative on the DC to DC charger. Now for the 40 amp charger, the cable size is 6 gauge or 16 mil. Now the positive line is going to be fused, and the fuse we're going to put in there is an 80 amp ANL fuse. So what you want to do for the positive post is give yourself a few inches, and that's where you want to put the fuse in. You don't want to be putting the fuse in at this end here, it's just bad practice. So that's where you want to put your fuse. So that's this side, that's the starter battery to the DC to DC charger. On the output side of the DC to DC charger, we're going to run a cable for BAT plus, positive cable, that's going to go down to auxiliary leisure battery plus, and from the negative side on the DC to DC charger, we're going to run a cable down, and that's got to go to the negative post on the leisure battery. And the cable sizes that we're going to be using on these two cables is, for the 40 amp charger, it is 8 gauge or 10 mil. So the positive line from the output, that's going to be fused as well, and that's going to be a 40 amp ANL fuse that's going to be used there. Same as over there, give yourself a few inches, put the fuse in there, don't put the fuse in down here. Now the 20 amp charger is hooked up the exact same way. There is no difference to the cable and the route and the cables. So the only difference is the cable size and the fuse size. So we'll have a look at that. So on the 20 amp charger, the cable size that's going to be used on the starter battery to the DC to DC charger is 8 gauge or 10 mil, and the fuse size that's going to be used is a 40 amp ANL fuse. So on the output side of the DC to DC charger, the cable size that's going to be used is 10 gauge or 6 mil for both the cables, and the fuse size is going to be a 30 amp ANL fuse. So really that's it. So you can see it there, but we've got limited room on our install. It's easier to see here. One thing I will add is these cable sizes are for 3 meter runs. So if you've got a cable run from the starter battery to the DC to DC charger and it's under 3 meters, that's the cable size to use for it. And the same goes on the other side. If you've got a cable run that's over 3 meters, you might want to up the size of the cables one to avoid voltage drop. Also, these lugs, these are 5 mil lugs, 4 of them on DC to DC charger. The sizes for them are, so the 20 amp charger, you will require 2 10.5 lugs and 2 6.5 lugs, and for the 40 amp charger you'll require 2 16.5 lugs and 2 10.5 lugs. So what I'll do is I'll leave a link in the description for the 4 lugs for the 20 amp charger, focus, right, and I'll leave a link for 4 lugs for the 40 amp charger. Now, what we're going to do is, on my install, we are going to put in a kill switch, because what will happen is, if I simply install it like that, as soon as I turn the key and start the engine, the DC charger is going to see the voltage increase, and then what the DC charger does is there's a 15-second delay, and then it will start charging the leisure battery. But there's going to be times when I don't want that to happen at all. So what we are going to do is we're going to put a kill switch right about here. So I'm going to put a 300 amp kill switch in there, so that I can control when that DC charger is going to be used. So apart from that, we're going to get to the van, and then we're going to get this installed, see how we go. So we're back at the van here, and we've got the DC charger mounted in position. What I want to point out is Renogy is suggesting that there's a 6-inch gap all the way around that. We've probably got about 4.5 inches each side, and maybe 2 or 3 inches up and down. But the benefit I've got here is the back of the DC charger is effectively a heat sink, and it's bolted straight onto that seat base, and that seat base will act as a huge heat sink. So I think I'm safe to put that there. The eagle-eyed amongst you will also notice that I've got it upside down. Now, that's simply because the way the cables are routed for the starter battery side and the output side, I have to have it upside down because I'm routing the cables that way. So basically what we're going to do now is we're going to run the cable in from the starter battery. I've got the positive in because I'm using the pre-existing positive cable that I had for the split charge relay, and you can see it coming through here. Now at the back there I've got to fit a kill switch, so the kill switch is going to go there. You can see a couple of holes, I'll have to drill some more, but you can see them there, and that's where that's going to sit. And then we'll run the cabling up along the back of here, and it'll go into the positive terminal down there. Now I have to run a negative cable from the starter battery, and that will be run in the same position as the positive cable. So we'll get on with that just now. We'll run everything, and I'll show you how the cables are routed once we've got that in position, and then we'll talk about the output side there. Right folks, so we've got the DC charger all hooked up now. We've got all the wiring in and everything's run, so we're just going to go through exactly how it's hooked up, and we'll give you a quick guide. So from the battery itself, we've got the positive that's running up. You can see that at the back of there we've got an ANL fuse. That's an 80 amp ANL fuse, and that's going to run over here. It goes through the wing and it goes down the inside of the wing, and I'll show you in a minute where that goes. The negative comes from here, it goes up round the back of that fuse there, and it goes through a grommet there. Now my original intention was to run that with the positive, but there's just not enough room, so we've had to run it through here, and we've put in a 20mm grommet. If you're going through metal, put a grommet in before you put the cables in, otherwise you'll barbecue your van. So that's the setup here, and we'll have a look and we'll see where the cabling goes. So we'll have a quick look at the positive. Now the positive's coming in here, down the inside of the wing. The positive's coming in under that carpet there. It's travelling down. You can see it coming out here. We've got it hooked up under here, and then it's coming up into the seat base. And as I said, what we've got there is we've got the kill switch. we put that in, it's coming out the top of the kill switch, it's running on the inside of here in conduit, and then we'll have a look, see if you can see. You can see the positive there. The negative, well, the negative's just coming in up the back there, it's running down, it's coming under the base there, and you can see the negative popping out there. Now you can see why we use the whiteboard, because showing you this in situ is problematic. Anyway, we've got that coming up, and we can see that going into the DC charger there. So that's how everything's coming in, and we'll have a look at the output side. So we've got the positive coming up. Find a look. Positive coming up. It's going in to an ANL fuse. That's the 40 amp. So the one in the front was the 80. That's the 40. And it comes out to the base there, and the negative is coming out, and it's going down to the base there. We'll have a look at the other side. You see both the cables coming out. They're running in conduit to keep them protected. They're running underneath the handbrake. They're coming round, and the positive is going up into the positive bus bar, and the negative is going up into the negative bus bar. So that's the long and short of it. I don't know if there's much to add. As I say, I'm using the kill switch there because I need control over it, and what I have found is when I turn it on, which I'll do now, so I'll turn the kill switch on, I'll take this light off, you can see a couple of lights. So we've got the battery, solid green at standby, we've got the dark blue there because we're using lithium iron phosphate with the battery activation on it. Now if I never had that kill switch, what would happen is, obviously there's a standby, you know, there's standby current that's going into that. I don't know how much it's using, but I just don't want it to be on when it's not being used. And if we just turn the kill switch off again, you'll see the power simply killed to it. So that's a long and short of it, folks. I don't think there's much to add to the video. The video is long enough, so we're gonna end it here. If you've got any comments or questions, leave them down below and I'll be happy to answer them. And you know, give it a like, a share, a subscribe would be nice. You know, we've only got a few hundred subscribers, so a few more would be appreciated. What I will do is I plan to get the Renogy BT2 Bluetooth adapter, because I want to get into that and I want to change the parameters, and I really want to see what's happening when, you know, when I'm charging that battery up, and if there are any changes that I need to do. Now there's very few, if any, videos or information on the changing the parameters within here, so we'll probably, you know, we'll do an update video and we'll try and get something, you know, that you might find useful if you're using Bluetooth and you want to go into the user settings for this unit and change it. But apart from that, I think we're done and dusted, and thanks for watching the video. I hope this has been helpful. Take care.